perfect, and it's gonna transcribe as well. So that's very cool. Okay, so we have someone who became a close friend of mine, which is hard to say because we never officially like met, in person, like in a way that's like, we became friends through you helping me, and you just jumped, kind of like slid into my DMs, and then you told me that you know me and you helped me a lot. And by the way, you know that I appreciate you and I love you. And it's weird because I met your wife more times than I met you at conferences. Now that I think about it, I don't want to, yeah. So we have Jason today, and I'm gonna let you introduce yourself in 30 seconds.
Yeah, so my name's Jason Kutasi. I run a children's book publisher called Puppy Dogs and Ice Cream. Been in business, gosh, I don't even know. We sold our first book end of 2017, so I guess that makes us, 5 years old and change. And I think the best way to really think about us is we're marketers who happen to be in the children's book space.
And actually, I love that that sentence, because for me, being a marketer is really tied up with being an entrepreneur, and then you're really versatile because you can do lots of stuff. You can that you basically have the power to drive sales. You have the power to drive traffic into any business, whether it's like that. And that's why I have like stuff in the supplement space and in the car space, in the agency space, and in the fitness space. But I want to talk specifically about your journey because that's something that's very close to my heart, and I've been going through that journey myself and with other people who are my friends, and I'm trying to get them, to go from working for a company for someone and into, building their own thing. So, I mean, I'm trying to understand if there was like a specific point in time where, the line was drawn in the sand where you've made that decision, or was it like a process with you? How did it happen?
Yeah. So I think there's, you and I share a lot of the same kind of network, and just in speaking to these different people who are either marketers or solo entrepreneurs or small agencies or big agencies, and then our friends who are also just working for some big corporate, organization. And I've thought a lot about this, and I've talked a lot about it with these folks. And really, at the end of the day, I don't think entrepreneurs are created. I think that when you start, there is an innate characteristic of the individual that is correlated to problem solving and correlated to risk appetite. So if you take a look at, people who become entrepreneurs, like they decided to basically accept that risk profile that they have as an individual. And because so many times, or I look at a bunch of friends I have that work for big companies, they make a lot of money, and I'm like, why don't you they're just like, no, like I like slow and steady and stable. And so for me, I think a lot of that comes down to risk. If I look at my entire career from like my jobs in college to first jobs out of college and stuff like that, I'm very, very nonconformist, and I'm a horrible employee. And and I'm a horrible, yeah. And I'm not a horrible employee because I don't work hard. I work probably harder than most in those big organizations, but I don't conform to the rules and the process and the procedure.
Yeah, and I used to get bored down at the office. I remember I used to finish all my tasks in like a quarter of the time, and I used to drive everyone crazy. So, okay, you were saying?
Yeah, and so like there was, I worked for a large organization years and years ago, and they had a process, and they wanted the reports updated every day, and I didn't do the reports, and I built my own reporting tracking because they were using some legacy stuff that just didn't work, and mine was better and faster. And then it really pissed my boss off because everybody else on the team started adopting what I was using because it was faster and more efficient. So like I was just always that viewer and the problem solver, like how do I just make it better, faster, etc. Conversely, I'm not a very good operator at scale. And so, if I had a 500-person company, dude, I would just be drowning. And we have people in the organization who have those characteristics that I do not. And so, you know, I think that I talk a lot about where if you can always bet on me to get from A to B. I will show up to point B. If you ask me to document it, write it down, figure out the process, I am not that guy. But I promise you we'll get there. Then there's other people who are really good at the document and the process and procedure, but they'll never get to B. And so there is that kind of that yin and the yang. And then I think the follow-up to that question that you had was like, so if you have this entrepreneurial mindset, which I correlate to a risk appetite, like when did you decide to jump off and why? And look, there's no right time to buy a house. There's no right time to get married. There's no right time to get a dog. And there's no right time to become an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurial spirit can come to the surface when you have time, right? And so do you have a corporate job that you just have on lock? Or it's COVID and you're working from home and you're actually only working 20 to 30 hours a week. So you have all of these extra cycles with uninterrupted time to be able to think freely and like test and execute and stuff like that. And then I think like there's a million people with ideas, like a million, right? But like how many of them execute on that idea? Very, very few. And so I think that just comes back down to the risk appetite. And I think that that on some levels, depending on what you want to do, like you have to have a little bit of discretionary income. Now that's relative, right? That's not 100 grand in the bank. It's not even 10.
And it's also relative to what you need, your burn rate and your family status.
Totally. So I think that also helps. So like when I started, you know, no wife, no kids, no house. And I started at 10-cent desktop clicks on Yahoo, spending like $100 a day. Right. And I was like, you know, and I ran it for 2 weeks. And I remember this story. I went and I met Akatif at a bar. I'll never forget this. On a Friday in San Diego.
Randomly?
What?
Randomly?
No. Like I already knew him. I sit down at this bar and he's like, how's your traffic doing? And I was like, yeah. So like I spent like $400 today and I made like 800 or whatever the number was. And yet the day before was like, I spent 200 and made 4. And he's just like, oh no, here we go. And then it was like just scaled. And you know, and then I was hooked. Like I couldn't stop. It was like this drug.
Back then you were working for the guy.
Yeah. I was working for him and I just started running Hippo's lifting firm. And side story, one of the doctors, Lakey, is now an author with us. we have a book with him, and we have a new series in the works right now with him as well, which is going to crush.
Wait, there is a lot I want to ask now. I mean, a lot to unfold there. So first of all, I think it's a very unique situation where you work for a guy and you talk openly about the fact that you're also doing things on the side.
Well, I was running through the network, right? So they were making,
but you know, 99%, including me, of the people who did stuff on the side wouldn't go and speak about it at the workplace, let alone, you know, your employer, you know, the boss. So that's unique. And 2, I want to go back to what you said. Okay, so you're saying that the biggest factor when it comes to entrepreneurship is the risk factor, how much you're willing to kind of like absorb or suffer in the, you know, risk meter. And the second thing you were saying is that you actually believe that being an entrepreneur, like a real entrepreneur, is something that you're born with. It's not something that you learn how to do.
Yeah, I think it just comes from that risk appetite. If you have no risk appetite, do not be an entrepreneur. Because
so you're saying it's kind of like a gambler's mind. You're addicted to it. You like it in some sense.
Yeah, I mean, my mother told me for years, she's like, it's like you're a gambler, like you're a poker player. And ironically, I don't like gambling. I don't play poker. Like if you invite me to play poker, I'll bring some pizza and beer. But I'm fairly certain at the end, you're just going to have my money and my booze and my pizza. And that's fine. I enjoy like that experience. But I don't like gambling because I don't feel like you can't control all of the variables. And I feel like in marketing, you can control more variables. And when you take a look, like I remember Akatif had also told me early on, he's like, yeah, there's this like standard journey, and I'm sure of an affiliate or whatever. And I'm sure he's talked about this in a million podcasts. But it's like, you start out as an affiliate, you start running traffic, you run out hours in the day, you build a small team, and then all of a sudden you get pissed off with all the advertisers, usually as a function of speed. Right? Like, why can't I get this pixel placed? Why did you switch this thing on the page? And so then you evolve and you start a brand, right? And for us, it was like very similar, right? So you want more and more control to increase the performance, and you sort of hit this block on the affiliate side. Now, that's not to say that you can't just be an affiliate and make a bunch of money and live a super chill life. I did that as well.
But what I meant to say is that, so it's kind of like, there is always this question, and I'm gonna bring like a very maybe an unwoke example. So I hope I don't get canceled or killed. But in general, it's like the question of whether you are born a certain way or not. Okay, so it's like in terms of meeting women, there are like the natural players, and then there are the people who had to go doing pickup courses and just like field mental training and go to coaches and stuff like that, really go through it, and they had to learn how to get dressed, how to be comfortable around women, blah blah blah. And the question around, are you born gay or not, or is it something circumstantial, or
I think it's a combination. I mean, so one, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and my father was very successful, but he'd also had two massive failures in a row.
Yeah.
And so I knew that you can always come out on the other side. Now, the other thing, so I was like, okay, so you're a condition of your environment. I grew up in an entrepreneurial environment, and I came from a very loving family and those sorts of things. But then the thing that's also interesting is like my sister and I grew up in the same household, and we're very different. And then you take one step back, and I look at, I'm in YPO, and I grew up in a YPO family. It's this entrepreneurs organization. And so I know a lot of very wealthy families, like extraordinarily wealthy families, who have 2, 3, 5, 6 kids in that family. And 9 times out of 10, if one child is successful, that doesn't mean the other children are successful, right? And it's like, but you have the same schooling, the same parents, maybe you have a trust fund that allows you to like achieve these things. Maybe you don't even need to work, but some people decide to work hard, and some people do not. And for me, I believe some of that is innate, right? Outside of the environment. And so maybe just thinking out loud, if you have a certain characteristic that you're born with, or just, you're skewed to a little bit of a higher risk profile, then if you have that right ecosystem nurturing you as you grow up, that risk appetite or that entrepreneurial spirit can thrive.
Yeah, definitely. I listen, as someone who coaches people, and I try and do that at least twice a week, whether it's friends, people who work for me, or just people who pay me for that. I don't think I can allow myself to believe it's something that you're born with, and that's the only option that you can do. I have to believe there is kind of like a rainbow of different entrepreneurial types and mindsets. And even if you are not someone who is willing to take risks, then you can still partner up with, like, for example, I have several partnerships that I recognized someone who is slower when it comes to risk appetite. And then I just took on the majority or 100% of the risk because I believed in, the project or that person or a combination. So listen, I don't want to sound too much like these podcasts, but authentically, like, what would you say to someone who is thinking about making that jump? He's working for someone, he's working for a company, thinking of making that jump. So we had one, there's never a right time. 2, you have to figure out your level when it comes to how much you have that appetite how much you have that gambler's mindset, and what would be like, the thing?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I've seen over the years is people have approached me with ideas, whether friends of friends, however they came in. There is a big distinction between a hobby and a business that somebody is trying to build. And I see a lot of hobbies that come across. And sometimes they want to build that business, but I think what a lot of people don't focus on is the unit economics of that business. Right? How are you going to drive a massive amount of scale with a business that doesn't have a lot of margin? And let's talk about performance first, right? So you have performance and you don't have any investors, and so you got to make money day one. That was us, right? We still don't have investors. But then I think there are these other people that are like, I have this idea, I'm going to go raise money, I'm going to go get investors, and then they're going to pay for it, and then they're going to take all the risk. If you can achieve that, that's fantastic. But if you have really good unit economics and you have good product market fit, you kind of don't need it. And then I think on the other side, people think about lower ticket stuff that maybe just doesn't have a lot of margin. Well, then you're basically going more into the brand space. Right. And then you need, and that when brand works, by the way, like I hate on brand all the time, but you can make it work. You just have to have big freaking budgets.
Budget,
right?
and balls and patience.
Correct. All of those things. And so it just makes it a lot harder. And then the other thing that happens too, and I'm sure you've seen this in coaching, but I used to have people pitch me an idea. And I had this templated email that was like, here's Sequoia has this, like, I don't know if it's still there. They probably still have it, but it was like 12 or 15 questions that you need to answer about your business. And then there was like, go read Eric Ries's The Lean Startup. And there was like another book. If you do those 3 things and you come back to me, I will give you an unlimited amount of my time. Do you know how many people I've ever had do that? 1.
Out of how many?
Oh, a couple hundred. Right. Just over my career. And really, they have an idea and they find it interesting, but they don't want to, they kind of just don't want to execute on it. But back to your original point, like, I think the most important thing is to figure out unit economics. Right. And so, like, why do so many people go into the health and beauty space? Like, why is it the easiest, which it is, unless, you're running Facebook ads, and then, that's a whole other conversation. But it's because the unit economics are so strong. The spread between the COGS to ship the product out the door versus the perceived value, it is a huge gap.
Yeah.
It is a huge gap. And I think there's a lot of great products that people can scale and grow. There was this guy who spoke at the D2C conference in Vegas, Midday Squares, great product, bought it for the office. Little shout out to those guys. It was great. But it's like a $3 like snack bar. So like, how do you get those margins up? By the way, I went through the numbers with the guy. He knows his numbers. Like, he's still looking at, like, what's the payback period on the acquisition, the lifetime value, like all of those things. And then I think with the unit economics piece, I also think a lot of people don't know their numbers, right? It's like Shark Tank. Like, do you know your numbers? And you see those people just get murdered on TV. But I see it all the time. And so I think
by now, by the way, I don't know how someone who gets like an opportunity to show up in Shark Tank and they've had so many seasons. I mean, that's like the basic stuff. Like how can you show up not prepared? How can you, not know your numbers completely?
I think most of these people show up and they think they have an idea that is so amazing or so incredible, somebody's just going to throw money at them. And does that happen? Sure. But you're like 1 in 100 million shot, right? So one of the things that we see, like in a bunch of these author groups or whatever, they're like, I wrote a book, I need a publisher. And I'm like, why? They're like, well, because I need distribution. I was like, just go get a distributor. They're like, well, I don't know the printers. I'll give you the list of all the printers. Well, I don't know how to put it up on KDP. It's really, really easy. There's 50 YouTube channels. What's the real problem and where are you blocked? And I think in the publishing space, and I see this in a lot of other businesses, they're like, I just have this idea. I want somebody to give me money and take it from me. Then sell the IP. Like if that's really, and take a ride on the back end if you have that much of an incredible story.
Well, do you think that? Why do you think that happens?
I think that people have an idea and they think it's a good one, and they don't actually think through the business. So I'll tell you a story. So I worked so most of my career is still in like structured finance and hedge funds and private equity and blah, blah, blah. All around commercial real estate. That's still the bulk of my career. I don't know when it kind of that paradigm shifts, but we got to be getting close to it. Probably in the next 5 years, I guess. And what was interesting about the difference between the hedge fund and, private equity and focusing on the equity side is it's the color of the glasses that you wear. If you were an equity investor, you are putting your rose-colored glasses on. I'm going to buy this building for $1 million. I'm going to put some lipstick on it. I'm going to raise the rent, and that's going to be worth $2 million. And you're always looking up and forward, which is super, super important. But then when I went to work for the hedge fund, they were a distressed credit fund, and they always looked to downside first. So what has to happen for the wheels to fall off? And I think maybe I was lucky. I guess this goes back to some of that nurture question and being a product of your environment. But I'm like, what happens if it doesn't work? What would have to happen for this new product that I'm going to launch to not work? Okay, your CPA is too high. Well, is it really too high? Yeah, it's usually a function of margin. Is the perceived value too low? Where are you weak? Do you not know how to market? Do you and market any way you want, right? So organic reach on Instagram all the way to smashing on YouTube. But like, I don't think they think of the downside risk of where that deal falls apart so that they can figure out whether or not they have a solution for it, or if that problem is so big, they probably will not be able to overcome it. And I just don't think people think through the business. It's just like, I have this idea and I'm just going to execute on, I'm going to try it or whatever. And then they have all these other problems they didn't think through, that where maybe the business actually isn't sustainable. There's a million great ideas.
Oh yeah, there are so many businesses that they failed even before they opened, the first day.
Correct.
So I have like two things that I want to say regarding that. One, I see what you're saying in terms of the economics of the business over and over again, especially when someone is very passionate towards something. So it happens a lot in the fitness space. Like, so for example, what you're going to see, just like you said, there's like the affiliate journey. When you get to the point that you're pissed at, the advertisers and the pixels and stuff.
Yeah.
There's the same thing that happens with fitness. Someone would come, they work for me, and then they would get to know people, and they open up, their own fitness center, and the chances, the statistical chances of them making it through the second year are very, very low, because they might be very good fitness trainers, but they're very bad with everything that has to do with running a business. So that happens. I think it happens the most times where I saw it, would be the fitness space, and then people who cut hair, hair designers. That happens because they work for someone for a very small amount per haircut, and then they get to know a bunch of people, and they think that they can either bring the same type of traffic, and they don't, so they start working from home, or some of them will even, more of a risk taker, and they go and they rent a place, and that happens a lot. I think I forgot the second thing that I wanted to say was that I think that, remember when I asked you why do you think that happens? I think that happens not just because people don't understand the business. I think that it really matters to people what others would think of them. So a big part of people not taking that step, and this has been my experience through personal development courses and seminars that I've been through, and also my coaching. So it's like there is both sides to it. It's the same kind of like side, but it's like two angles. One angle is being afraid of what happens if I fail and what people would think of me, which is a big part, whether people, really understand it, and it already has floated inside the conversation inside their head, and it's known. And the other part would be, how do I look on the outside? So lots of people, especially in Israel, but I would bet in the States as well, they open up a business. One of the first things they would do is they would buy a luxury car. The first thing, they would have a Mercedes lie around somewhere, which is completely funny. So, I watched, I think it was last week or the week before, I watched a Family Guy episode, and Brian, the dog, he said, okay, I'm going to be an author. And he was like signing, his book. He did like a reading or something. And then Stewie, the baby in Family Guy, he came and I was like, yeah, I'm now a published author. And he was like, self-published. And it's like, that is the specific point. Like, who the fuck cares? At the end of the day, you're saying the important thing is getting to the point that you want to get to. Do you want to get your book published? Amazing. I sat around a year ago with a friend, and I told him he never wrote a book. He's not related to the book world. He's an entrepreneur. He opened up a bunch of business, very smart guy, younger than me. And I told him, what do you think I should do in terms of publishing? It was back when you and I were talking about it. And he told me, listen, if you're going to do it and you're going to write one book, probably, you have to get it published because you want to be a published author. You want to, when they introduce you, you want to say that. And that's why, when I went through the round of publishers, everything that was important to them was selling me on a package on the Wall Street Journal, on Amazon, on how to be a bestseller, because that's the main thing. People care about it. They care about the title, and that's the thing that hurts me the most in terms of like the algorithms. Right now, TikTok, Instagram, TikTok is like the worst when it comes to it. It's like social media in terms of the organic algorithm has become an episode of Mean Girls. It's just like you have to say the meanest thing, the thing that would get as many people upset as possible. It has to be something about any type of religious, something about women, something about being and that's why people like Trump get elected. At the end of the day, I mean, like
it's polarizing, right? Like you really want to polarize the audience. Just gets that engagement, right? And that's what they're looking for, is engagement.
It's crazy. I opened up my own TikTok, so I have this phone pranks channel in Israel. So I started uploading and playing with the algorithm. One specific prank really caught on. So it's a brand new page, but it got like thousands of video or plays for the pranks. And one prank is already standing right now on 13K, and it's growing each day. And it's the only prank that's actually not a prank. And what it is me, I was talking to the bank, and the guy was telling me, listen, I want to know what you're doing with all these credit cards, and there is lots of like transactions and stuff. And I was like, dude, what do you care? I can do with my money whatever I want to do. I want to wake up in the morning and have like $100,000 breakfast. What do you fucking care what I do with my money? I don't do anything. I use you. You're a bank. If you don't want me as a client, then amazing. I'll go to another bank. Just tell me. But I don't want to have this conversation every week, which is what we're having. And the thing that you see the comments on there, it's like one person is like a conspiracy theorists guy, and he's like, they're trying to control us. And another guy, he just hates the banking system, and he would be, so it's like, it's very funny on seeing how it works. And I don't think it's gonna get any better, honestly. Maybe I'm wrong, and it's gonna close like a cycle, and then it's gonna be, being nice and authentic is gonna be like so unique and so rare that it's gonna be like a trait that people would want to see more. But I don't know.
I don't think so. I think it's just going to continue to get worse, because at the end of the day, what's the first metric that social media or any website really is looking for? They're looking for engagement.
Yeah.
And so how do you get engagement? You get engagement by driving emotion. And how do you get it right? And so I do think it started out where like you drove emotion a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and then you're like, oh, this is working. Let's go more to the left. Let's go more to the right.
Yeah. And you push it, and every time the boundaries get a bit worse. And Jason, I see it with TikTok. I'm such a late adopter, you know. I didn't believe YouTube is gonna catch on. I didn't believe in lots of stuff that I was completely like, if you want to take a bet on something, ask me and do the opposite. But so I opened up like TikTok, and with TikTok, it's like, it's almost abusive, you know. It's like, if you want to get out of TikTok, it's almost like the next stage would be, you know, taking a psychiatrist and having them sit next to you and or you know, tie your hands down or something. You wanna you know, exit, and it pops another clips into your thing, and like, what do I need to do? Even if you like on Android, you want to close it, it's like, what do I need to do? Buy a new phone? It's like, you know. And then the second you're gonna leave your phone, a notification is gonna pop, you know, something interesting is gonna, you know, show up. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, that's what they do. I mean, but you know, I think is for us as marketers, that's just something we have to lean into. And then you know, it's creating emotion, right? It really is. And feelings, and you know, it's pain point solution, right? That's product marketing.
But where do you see the books world interact, or just like,
So this
you
is,
know,
I'll tell you.
with this?
So I'll tell you something. I have a lot of opinions on the book world, and for the most part, there's a lot of very smart people in this sort of industry. But like, it is a very, very old industry with not a lot of innovation at all. The thing that's the most interesting that I'm really curious about is what AI is going to do to the book industry. So the book industry as a whole, for obvious reasons, is very against ChatGPT for copy and against Midjourney for images. They really don't want to disrupt the authors. They don't want to disrupt the illustrators, and so on and so forth. And so for us, who we are complete nonconformists, right? And so at some point, if you're a parent and you buy a children's book, and we don't have any AI books or any of that stuff now, but one of the things I think about is like, are you looking for content that is good for your child? Your kids enjoy reading it. You like reading it to your kids. Do you care whether or not it was created by AI or not? And
I don't think someone would care. The client doesn't care.
They don't care, but the publishers care about the authors and the literary agents and all of these things. And if they disrupt that, that is a massive problem, right? But I'm reminded of, you probably know this, but like in the old Disney movies, like all of those individual frames were hand painted.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you're like, okay, cool. Well, we just switched to like Pixar type stuff. Where are those people today? Right. They're not hand painting it. Like, did parents care? No. Like, you know, you go from Snow White to like, I don't know what the most recent Disney movie is, but like the most recent Disney movie, and it's all AI. And then you look and see what's coming with the bodysuits that then just put the avatar over you as you move.
You know what popped into mind? Like in 10 years, it's gonna be like, you know, if a suit or a shoe or like a leather inside your car would be hand stitched or handmade, it's gonna be like in 10 years, someone's gonna hold a book and this is human made. Like a person actually wrote this. This is gonna be like unique. It's not computer based. It's actually someone who wrote it.
Yeah, but are you gonna pay more for it? And now all of a sudden you're selling art. You're not selling a product, right? And so then I'm like, all right, well, what happens there? And that will be an angle. Like there's an actual person behind this who wrote it and so on and so forth. But I look at it today. Most people don't care who the illustrator is. They don't even know the name. They don't know if there was an editor. They could care less about the publisher. They care about the author. And if that author is leveraging AI, so be it. Like, look at all the big spy novel guys, like all the, the spy novels, big authors, dude, they have ghostwriters. They don't even write all their own books anymore.
Of course. But when I asked you that, I meant like, so back in the day, it was like the medium was like text, and then Facebook came and it's images, and then Instagram came and it became kind of like a 50-50 with videos, and then videos became a thing on Facebook, and now on TikTok it's videos. And I'm like, I was thinking like the transition that books would have to do would be going into like the video illustrated world, probably, which they are already have been to doing it for a while, and also then I think it's gonna make book publishing actually a lot easier, because right now, for example, I have to find someone who would edit my book and someone who would get like the book cover and stuff like that, and I would have it easier, at the very least easier, as an analytical person, to show what I like or what I want, or what, just like as an example, even if I would want someone to do that for me. So, but okay, I want to jump on to another question that I had. So when I started writing my book, you helped me with lots of advices and things, and really opened up my eyes into this world that I really didn't knew, from like technical stuff to more advanced stuff. And I was wondering, like, how did you find about them, and how many mistakes like you did back, at the beginning of when you started? But specifically, just a second before you answer.
Yeah.
I recently learned, which has probably been a blind spot in my life, that I'm a guy that learns from mistakes. Everything from girls to school, from business relationships and friendships and stuff like that. So my main question would be, like, what has been the mistake, when you go to shower, when you go to sleep, that specific mistake, or a set of mistakes that really haunts you at night, that wakes you up sometimes?
That's a tough question. While I think about that for a second, I will tell you that I'm a guy who everything I learned was from a mistake or a problem, right? So like, hey, we have this problem. How do we solve this problem? And then you go and you look around for a solution, without exception, right? And I think that comes from the marketing side, where you're always like split testing and trying new stuff. For the biggest mistake we made on the book side, I think there's problems with the industry. The perceived value one on children's books is the first one that comes to mind. Just it's really hard to increase the perceived value of a children's book. Like, you can double, quadruple the pages, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, a kid's book is $10.
This has been an interesting topic that we talked about back then.
Yeah,
which I haven't even thought of, like the ratio between the number of pages and how you get, like, the perceived value. So the only thing that kind of like overlaps, I think, with digital marketing, like in the e-com world and stuff, would be bringing like an influencer. So if you have someone important, or someone that's interesting, or a celebrity that wrote a book, that increases the perceived value. But you can't really do it in that niche, that like children.
Yeah. So I'm going to argue it actually doesn't increase the perceived value. I'm going to argue that it lowers your CAC.
Oh yeah.
If you can leverage that product. So like Penguin Random House,
not on the value side as much as the costs.
Correct. So like Penguin Random House I've been seeing this ad running super hard. Dolly Parton, a country singer, has a new kids book out. Do I know if this book is good at all? Like, no. Or what's the other one that ran hard? It's the dude from Magic Mike in The Notebook. I see his face, the actor. The very handsome guy, all the girls like him. He had a kid's book. Dude, his marketing was great because he dressed up as like a princess for his little girl. Dude, it's all marketing. Do I know the book's good? No. And so, we've done some celebrity type authors, and outside of their traffic, like, it just doesn't really matter that much. I think that, when you look at these books and sort of where we've been leaning and where we've been successful, we have so many great books. All of our books are great, actually. Varying levels of great, but I think they're all great. I've read every single one before we've published or created or whatever. But some hit harder than others. And the first question I always ask, these authors when we publish somebody, and then the same thing on the product side. But like, why do I care? Like, why do I care? And it's, maybe my new product is a new knife, and the knife cuts apples better than any other knife. But you're just like, hey, I have this new knife. Like, see the beautiful product image of the knife. Why do I care? I already own a knife. Well, this one's sharper. Why do I care? You can cut apples twice as fast. It's dishwasher safe. But there's a cool thing. You can't cut your finger. Like whatever it is. Like, why do you care? And I think a lot of people don't focus on that. So if you took a celebrity like Dolly Parton, and instead of, I forget what her book's about actually, but like, why is it relevant? What's the problem it solves? Or what's the story that I'm trying to tell my child?
And why would my kid care?
Yeah, why does my kid care? And sometimes it can be entertainment, right? And those books do exist, just really like movies or TV shows. Like, you don't learn anything, like you don't care. It's just, you just want to be entertained. But that is harder to drive with paid marketing. That goes back on a performance basis. That goes back to reach, right? You just need a ton of reach, and yeah, it's just hard.
It's interesting. I mean, that's definitely a big challenge.
By the way, I have your answer. Biggest mistake.
Yes.
Hiring too fast.
Yeah.
That is the biggest mistake that somebody can make, and I have made it many times. So I'm smart enough and old enough to know that business always changes, ebbs and flows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you a great example, and it's happened at different points of our career. It's very easy to hire and scale back office. It's not wildly easy, but it's much easier.
Very easy to file.
That's correct. But I look at when right before iOS 14 came about, we were printing money. Like, it was just crushing. And we were hiring, and I was hiring very expensive people. Another lesson, just because you're expensive doesn't mean you're good. So we were hiring expensive people, and we were growing the business, and our overhead was growing, and iOS 14 came, and it was like a light switch, a slow light switch, but it was a light switch. And when the lights went out, it was very, very hard. I think, and so that one lesson is not specific to the book industry. I think it's just across business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you open up a sandwich shop, and you start including a bottle of sunscreen with your sandwich, and you're selling by the beach in the summer, and you're like, we are growing so fast, and it's like July, and you're hiring in August. It's so hot, so much sun. Then January comes, and you're dead in the water. And hiring too fast. That's been the number one, mistake, and I'm very cognizant of it. And
yeah, I know how it feels like when you're running like an offer for either a client or yourself or an affiliate type of offer, and then it works amazing in the first few hours or the first couple of days, and you're like, dude, I'm gonna obsess on this. I'm scaling it on every media buying platform there is. I'm already thinking about the yacht, about the Lamborghinis, yes, the mansion, and you're already there. You're you're the nicest guy. Everyone that talks to you, no one can ruin your mood. And then 2 days after, you're losing money. You want to kill yourself. The dream died with that campaign. So I know how it feels, and yeah, I've never made that mistake of recruiting that fast because I believed it's a mistake. I try and keep a very narrow structure. Mm-hmm. I think it also hurt me a few times, but I think it did more good than bad because I'm a hard worker, and the most 80% of the times that I saw that people were scaling in terms of employees and people that are working for them, it was 50% out of that was showing other people that they have a big company. Mm-hmm. And the other 50% was that they didn't want to do the work. And they became lazy very fast. And only 20% out of that was truly, they needed that extra help to grow. But dude, yeah, I want to keep it short so people would actually stay throughout, and I want to have you at least one more time because we have lots of other stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. But happy for now, I want to thank you and tell you that I love you. And I remember the first time we met, I was looking for the pitch. I think I never told you that, but I was like, all right, this guy's gonna help me. Yeah, he came out of my DMs, and I was like, I don't know why I went up on a call. Like, I really didn't believe in. As the call progressed, I was like, okay, he's like giving me candies, and I can feel the snake bite is coming. The pitch is gonna come. He's actually doing it. He's gonna pitch me. He's gonna pitch me. He's gonna pitch me. Nothing. And I was like amazed at the end. I think I was like, I think the next call was my dad when we finished, like the call after our call. And I was like, you know, there was this nice guy and he helped me. It was like genuine and didn't want anything. It was like, and I was like, wow.
I don't have anything to sell, right? And but generally I very much enjoy helping people who do the work. And I got into this debate with my trainer a couple months ago, and maybe I'll close with this last point.
Yeah.
I said, I'm like, hey, if I paid you every session to come and work out, but I sat there and all I did was play video games on my phone, would you keep me as a client? And he's like, no. And I'm like, why not? You're getting paid. You can go play video games on your phone. You can go on Instagram. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, I want to feel rewarded for the work that I put out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I get back. And that's the pitch. So if I help somebody, I want them to do the work. If they don't do the work, it drives me insane.
Definitely. I agree. And this is why I fired lots of clients and also people who I coached, because like, for example, if someone would come and I would advise them and I would see that they're not showing up on time, they're not really willing to do the work, I would be, you know, sometimes I soft fire them and sometimes I do it harder, but it's, you know, the soft way would be saying, yeah, I mean, I have a spot that's open in like 3 months, and the you know, the harder way I do it would be saying, listen, I cherry pick the people I work with regardless of the type of work, and you know, it's not really what I'm looking for. So I really understand what you're saying.
Yeah, you still want results, but they don't have to be cash. It has to be effort. You want to see your students grow. Okay,
dude, I love you, and I'm gonna have you one more time. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for the advice. I hope that people, I believe that people can take a lot from what you said. And love you, dude. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye, Jason.
All right, bye-bye.